Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
A magic beyond anything you could ever imagine.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Sagrera Farms on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day.
You really think that's the best idea?
Live from downtown Baton Rouge, this is Hunt Palmer.
It's quite a piece of work.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from our studio downtown in the capital city. It's Thursday. It means we're brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Working towards the weekend. Got Jacob Beck and Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. Plenty to do over the next couple of hours. LSU in Florida, just a couple of days away. We'll dive into it. I want to give you some of the thoughts that I have on some matchups on the field on Saturday. We'll talk to Chris Blair at 2:15 about it as well. Sam Spiegelman going to join us. He's with the Rivals on 3 Network. Going to talk some LSU recruiting at 2 o'clock. I want to touch a little bit on the quarterback situation that LSU is continuously in with that trio of players, but we'll go outside of that as well, as there are some expected announcements here in the next couple of weeks. The Saints are going to get a look at a backup quarterback. We'll talk about that. And I want to discuss the backup on the other side of LSU. That's DJ Lagway and the Florida Gators. So let's talk about all of that. Let's crank things up the way we do every day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's opening drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
It's time to start digging into this matchup between LSU and Florida on Saturday night. Two programs kind of feel like they're in different places, but I feel like we're going to learn a lot about both teams and both programs on Saturday night. And I think one of the matchups that is very much going to determine the outcome in this game is one that Florida absolutely dominated in last year's game in Gainesville. And it was not a spot that I expected Florida to dominate last year in Gainesville. If they do it on Saturday, I won't be stunned. It's Florida's defensive line against LSU's offensive line. This is going to sound like Groundhog Day a little bit with the Clemson matchup, but it is what it is. I don't change the players on the field. They are what they are. We talk about them. And Florida's got a couple of guys who potentially could be first-round picks on that defensive front, and we know that Clemson did as well, and we talked about it all of August, and it's now time to kind of talk about it again with this Florida team, and the injury report crystallized that a little bit further yesterday. Caleb Banks was not listed on Florida's injury report yesterday. Caleb Banks injured his foot in camp and has not been available for the first 2 games for Florida. He will be on Saturday. Well, who's Caleb Banks? I'll tell you who Caleb Banks is. He plays defensive tackle for Florida. He is 6'6". He is 330 pounds, and he is projected by many to be a first-round pick in this coming draft. LSU saw Caleb Banks last year in this game, and he was an absolute menace. He had a strip sack of Garrett Nussmeier. He had 3 pressures on the night. Emory Jones picked up a fumble at one point, and he knocked him down and got a fumble produced out of that play. He is a problem. And you look at where he's positioned on that Gator defense, and it's right between the center and the guard, and LSU's starting center is at least compromised on Saturday. Braylon Moore might play. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not Braylon Moore, but I'm pretty confident Braylon Moore is, if he plays on Saturday, going to be a little bit gimpy. I don't think you're going to leave the game on the first play, get checked out in the locker room, come back out and give it a whirl, and then get into a walking boot for the second half, and then just come back and be ready to rock the next day. Brian Kelly has been cautious in his press conference words about him. He has used questionable. He has used probable. He was on the injury report last night. Feels like there's confidence around LSU that he might be able to play. But I've told you this many times. I don't think this is an indictment of LSU. This is just the way that I feel personally. I don't take a lot of injury information as gospel as it is leaked to the media. I just wait and see. I'm just telling you based on what I think that Braylon Moore is, at least, if he doesn't play, going to be compromised. If he doesn't play, then you've got DJ Chester and Paul Mabenga in there on the interior. Those are the 2 guys that played against this Florida team last year and got their butts kicked. If you look at the Pro Football Focus grade, DJ Chester graded 49.5. Paul Mabenga graded 46.1 in that game in the Swamp. Now, those guys are 10 months older now. They're conceivably 10 months better. And I'm not suggesting that because they didn't play well in the Swamp last year, they couldn't play well in this game on Saturday. But Florida in this game last year had 11 tackles for loss and 6 sacks. They just wrecked everything LSU was trying to do. And Caleb Banks was a huge part of that, and Tyreek Sapp was an even bigger part of that. Now, Tyreek Sapp is Warren's nephew. He's 6'3". He's 275 pounds. Doesn't quite have the length the NFL scouts really, really like, but his production has been very good. He plays with a ton of motor. Last year, he had 13 tackles for loss and 7 sacks. He got back there against LSU on multiple occasions, notched 4 tackles for loss, including a sack that day. He's on the edge, and he's a problem. As we know, this LSU offense cannot hum unless the offensive line holds its own. And I thought against Clemson, they held their own. Those that looked at the All-22 tape, those that grade for Pro Football Focus, those who watch the highlights, that everyone that I've read or watched that kind of observed the Clemson game after the fact said, yeah, LSU's offensive line got pushed around, but they found some holes in the running game. They did enough to keep Nussmeier upright, only 1 sack, and that was good enough. And I thought the game plan that LSU went into was a good one. And they may have to tap back into it in this one because these 2 guys for Florida are a problem. And it may be a bigger problem for LSU if Braylon Moore is not available altogether. So the good news is, this is my opinion, but I think it's based in some reason. Last year, it's very difficult for me to suggest that LSU, Joe Sloan, Brian Kelly, Garrett Nussmeier, were going to go into that game in the swamp suggesting they may not be able to protect. Like, that just wasn't a reasonable thing to go into a game expecting for that offensive line last year. They had plenty of issues in pass protection. Absolutely. Sorry. They had plenty of issues in running the ball. They had almost no issues in pass protection. Got it right that time. Like, they protected the passer brilliantly all year, and they couldn't block Florida. So at that point, like, it's kind of tough once you realize late second quarter, mid third quarter, like, we can't block these guys in pass protection. It's kind of hard to pivot at that point, right? You've got a plan coming into the things you want to do and the guys you want to attack on the outside, the ways you want to get the ball to Aaron Anderson, to Kyron Lacey at that point. To, like, you understand what you want to do and get Mason Taylor involved. And then all of a sudden, you kind of got to pivot on a dime and go, these guys are living in our backfield. I think it's easier to prepare that could be a case and have something a little bit more practiced and readied for the game on Saturday night. So to me, this is a massive, massive deal. This is very similar, in my opinion, to the opener against Clemson, and I don't think this is hyperbole, with one small exception, and I'll explain. If Florida doesn't win with its defensive line, I think Florida's in big trouble. Big trouble. Because I don't know where else they really get after LSU. Across the field. The one small caveat I would add to that, DJ Lagway has really thrown the deep ball well early in his career. Last year, he was really good at it. He's been terrible through 2 weeks. If they had some big plays with Lagway down the field, Eugene Wilson, those guys, sure, you can stay in it. And if there are turnovers, anybody can stay in any game, no matter what the stat sheet says, if one team turns the ball over. But if you just play it fairly standard and look at reasonable expectations for the guys that Florida's going to put on the field, for the guys that LSU is going to put on the field, Florida's best chance to win this game is to whip LSU at the point of attack, stop the run and shut it down completely, and get after Garrett Nussmeier just like they did last year when they sacked him 6 times. And 2 of the guys that you're most concerned about were chief among the issues last year. Now, Jack Pyburn was in that mix as well, stopping the run. He now plays for you, and he was on that front. So it's a little bit different, but those 2 guys are the biggest talents on the defensive front, and they're there. So if that's Florida's best path, but that said a different way, is if LSU's offensive line is prepared and plays a good game, I don't think Florida can beat LSU in Tiger Stadium. If Florida doesn't register a sack and LSU runs for 115 yards, LSU is going to be just fine. If LSU runs for 46 and Florida has 9 tackles for loss and Garrett Nussmeier gets sacked 4 times and hurried a couple more times that results in a turnover, there you go. There's your path. This is a talented Florida defense. They've got dudes on every level. You look at their returning starters preseason, you see both their safeties are back. Their top corner, Devin Moore, is back. They've got Sharif Denson at star, Grayson Howard at linebacker. Like, they've got a lot of guys back off of a pretty good defense from last year with a coordinator returning. And they played good on defense last week. They gave up 14 points. But their offense was bad, and their special teams cost them a safety, and they lost 16-14 in a 2-point game. This defense can put up a fight against LSU for sure. Tech put up a fight last week against LSU. But if they just put up a fight, I think LSU's fine. Florida's path here, to me, is the defensive front. You got to have Braylon Moore, DJ Chester. You got to have Josh Thompson, Paul Mabinga. You got to have your tackles, Tyree Adams, and Weston Davis play a really good game in this game. This will be Groundhog Day most weeks. But not every team is going to boast 2 potential first-rounders on the front 7, on the front 4. Clemson did. LSU's seen it. They blocked their LSU front all August long. And now they're going to see it again with Florida. I don't think, we're certainly not going to see it with Southeastern next week. I don't see that with Ole Miss right now. Bama's best defensive lineman is hurt. Like, this is front-loaded in terms of, like, elite NFL talent you're going to see. You're going to have to deal with this at South Carolina with Dylan Stewart, and we'll talk about it then. But this week, this is the first time I've really gotten into the matchups in this game. The lead of the show on this Thursday, Florida's defensive line, LSU's offensive line. That's the one to look at for sure. I've got a story up right now at LouisianaSports.net. The 3 matchups to watch, that's first on the list. We'll also, over the course of this day, talk about DJ Lagway versus Garrett Nussmeier, who aren't on the field at the same time, but it's a big matchup between those 2 quarterbacks. And Florida's got an All-American center, a really physical and tough running back. LSU's front 7 is going to have to hold their own there. I've written about it and elaborated on it for free at LouisianaSports.net if you want to go check that out. But that's the first matchup here, Florida's defensive front and LSU's offensive line. Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beefs. Tailgate season, it's game watching season, still grilling season down here where it's warm in the South. So if you're looking for the best Angus beef you can find in the area, really in the country, Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef can be your option. All right, let's take a time out. We'll come back, chat with our guy, Luke Johnson with the Saints. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Vaughn and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Safety can be a big issue in the bathroom as folks age. It can be a hazardous situation. You can't take those risks away, but you can mitigate against them. If you have someone in your life who's aging, wants to stay at home, and you think, might be a good idea to look into some safety precautions. David and his team do this kind of stuff all the time. Non-slip floors, walk-in tubs, showers with benches, handrails where slippery areas could be hazardous. Get those installed in the best interest of that loved one of yours who is aging. If you're thinking about, well, where do I even start? Well, you go to onebathandclosets.com, reach out to David. Y'all can have a consultation. That's free. You just have a discussion about what you're going to do. David does this all the time. He can fill you in on the process, how it works. If you're worried about financing, they've got it. 0% up to 18 months. If you qualify, same as cash. It's One Bath and Closets. You can find them online. OneBathAndClosets.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Lots to cover on this Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. In hour number 2, we're going to talk to Sam Spiegelman about a little bit of LSU recruiting. We'll also chat with the voice of the Tigers, Chris Blair, at 2:15. Have the Brian Kelly Show tonight, 7 o'clock from TJ Ribbs. So you can get on by there and hear from the coach. We'll hear from Chris in 1 hour from right now. And Saints are going to take on Mac Jones in the San Francisco 49ers coming up on Sunday from the Dome. I'll talk about kind of my thoughts on that in an hour and 15 minutes at 2:30. Maybe an opportunity for the Saints with no starting quarterback in Brock Purdy, no tight end in George Kittle. Could be an interesting matchup between the Saints and the 49ers. Let's talk some black and gold with Luke Johnson, who covers the team for NOLA.com, and the Advocate joins us on Thursdays on the Gems Firearms Hotline. Luke, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
It's our pleasure. All right, let's talk about the Saints first before the injuries on the other side of things. What was the best thing that you saw Sunday in the Dome?
I really think the defense played up to my expectations. Minus, really, to be honest, it was just that big explosive run play was the biggest one. I think that, we kind of saw some of the problems with the old unit, but I thought the pass rush looked good. I thought the coverage for the most part looked good. Cardinals managed 160 passing yards in the game. They had 5 sacks, although two of those sacks were just Kyler Murray scrambling and running out of bounds a yard behind the line of scrimmage. But the pressure was good. That's what you need to see out of this team. They got a young quarterback. They're probably not going to score a ton of points offensively. We saw that play out this week. And if their defense can play up to that level or a little bit better, I think we could expect this team to be competitive at the very least, which I think is more than a lot of people thought going into the season.
How big a deal is the Julian Blackmon injury and him being gone for the year?
I think it's a big deal. I really, really liked him. I liked his fit. I said on our show before the start of the season, my bold prediction was that he was going to make the Pro Bowl. And obviously that's not going to pan out.
Nope.
But I do think that they're actually positioned pretty well to make up for that loss. I really like what Jonas Sanker did in the preseason. He's just, he's a young, intelligent, physical football player with a lot of athleticism. The one downside to that is I think he's pretty similar to Justin Reed as a player, where Blackmon and Reed really complemented each other well with their skill sets. I think there's a little bit of sameness to Reed and Blackmon, where maybe you're going to lose some of that that kind of playmaking, deep safety ability that you had in Julian Blackmon. But I still think Sanker's a good player. I think they're going to be okay. I think that was one of the few positions on the roster where if they lost a guy, you could say, okay, they're still going to be fine there. Now, if they lose another guy, then I think you're starting to look at problems. But that's that's like with any team. If you start going to the third option at a spot, it's going to start looking a little rough. So, hopefully Reed and Sanker can stay healthy. And I think both of those guys will be pretty good together.
With the understanding that Spencer Rattler can't catch the ball for Juwan Johnson, are we speaking differently about Spencer Rattler today if Juwan Johnson comes down with that last ball?
I definitely think so. Although I think Rattler probably opened some people's eyes. The box score wasn't super impressive, right? He completed less than 60% of his passes, only averaged about 7 yards of completion, something around there, less than 5 yards per attempt. 70 passer rating. That's not stuff that we're going to be like, oh, Spencer Rattler is a quarterback of the future. But he's definitely somebody that you can win with. And we saw that play out this week. That would have been a crazy catch if Juwan would have pulled it in. Yeah. He was going against his momentum, jumping up into the air, twisting his body. He's got 2 guys hitting him, and he's making contact with the ground. That would have been an incredible catch if he made it. But if he does, you're talking about a game-tying, potentially game-winning touchdown pass in the closing seconds. If they would have gone for 2, we don't know that. I think he showed that he can go out there and he can make plays. He can take what the defense gives him. They played a lot of shell coverage, so he wasn't trying to force the ball deep. He's just throwing a lot of the underneath stuff that Arizona was giving him, and he played pretty well. 18 to 24 on passes where he's getting rid of the ball in 2.5 seconds or less. That's pretty good. So we'll see what he does for an encore. But I think a lot of people who were going into this year saying well, the Saints are obviously going to have the number 1 pick because look, they got Spencer Rattler at quarterback. I think he's a lot better than just some scrub backup who they're just throwing out there in the Wolves.
All right, let's talk Saints in San Francisco. Does this discussion change pretty significantly when you find out Brock Purdy and George Kittle are not playing?
Yeah, that's huge, right? There's a big difference between Mac Jones and Brock Purdy. Even if the San Francisco 49ers were supposedly they really were in on Mac Jones the year they ended up drafting Trey Lance. And I think Kyle Shanahan is one of the best offensive minds in all of football. He's probably going to play better than maybe he did with the Patriots or the Jaguars. But there's still a pretty big gap, I think, between him and Purdy. There's a reason he's on his 3rd team now. So, like, that's a huge boost to the Saints. And so, George Kittle, like, the last time he played in the Dome, he just, like, absolutely killed the Saints.
Yep.
He had that huge catch and run at the end of the game where he's shoving Marcus Williams into the ground. Like, he's an awesome player. And 4 catches for 25 yards and a touchdown, like, midway through the second quarter before he hurt his hamstring. So, for a Saints team that, I think is a pretty solid defensive team, to not have to face the best playmaker and the best quarterback on that team, big deal. Like, I think it legitimately gives the Saints a chance this weekend at pulling off an upset win.
On the flip side, you got to deal with Bosa and that pass rush with an offensive line that's a little young on the edges. How do we feel about it?
We'll see. I think Talifuaga has a pretty good chance to play on Sunday. I just don't know, like, what he's going to look like, because he played last Sunday for 3 quarters, and he did not look like the player we were accustomed to. That injury was clearly bothering him. So if he goes out there and he's playing anything like that, it could be a problem. But I weirdly feel kind of good about Kelvin Banks. Maybe that's just, like, kind of idiotic of me to say for a guy who just played his first NFL game and he's potentially going to be lining up against an all-pro pass rusher. But I think as a pass blocker, he's pretty good right away. I feel okay about that. It's Fuaga is the one that I'm really worried about. But even then, like, San Francisco had one of the worst pressure rates in football in week 1. I think they only got 1 sack, maybe 8 pressures the entire game against Seattle. I think they might be more reputation than anything at this point. But I might look like a complete idiot on Sunday if they have 6 sacks or 7 sacks or something like that. But I think they've obviously got good players, but I think they didn't really show it in week 1, and I actually feel pretty good about the Saints, at least at left tackle.
You think Kendre Miller's role is going to grow on this team, if for anything else, just so that Alvin Kamara doesn't have to do what he did last year?
I think so. I hope so. I think he's been nothing but a pleasant surprise at every stage of this, like, lead up to the season. And even last week, he had a really small role because they barely ran the ball. I thought he looked good last week. This is a player we all, like, hyped up over and over and over and over again just to see him, like, injure his hamstring every third time he touched the ball. So, I think at some point, like, they're going to be playing games where they're not throwing the ball 66% of the time. And they're going to have to lean on their ground attack, and I really do think that they're going to try to lessen the load on AK to get him back to kind of what he was early in his career. He was more of a big play threat because he wasn't touching the ball 25 times a game. So I like, at some point this is going to happen, and he's going to look really good. But it's kind of incumbent on them. I was a little surprised at how often they threw the ball last week. But I would expect that to come back to earth a little bit. Maybe that'll lead to a little bit more for Kendre.
Here's a weird question. How important?
I love it. Let's go.
How important is this game on Sunday for the Saints because of what comes next?
Yeah, it feels pretty important, right? Look, I know San Francisco just beat Seattle last week, but, like, Seattle's I think going to be a pretty good team this week, and to play them on the road and then to follow that right up with Buffalo on the road, I don't think you want to be 0-4 going into week 5. Like, I have a hard time seeing them winning either of those week 3 or week 4 matchups. It kind of felt like they had to kind of pick off one of the first 2 games to just not just be in this black hole through the first quarter of the season. So I really do think this one's important, especially, it's setting up favorably for him with the quarterback injury and the George Kittle injury. The vibes are kind of off in San Francisco again this year. Like, I think if they could get one here, it would feel a lot better going into that week 3 matchup. But I still think that this is a team that we're going to be judging by how they finish the season.
Yeah.
It's just so much newness on the team right now. This is really Spencer Rattler's second legitimate start. Right? He got all those starts last year, but it was with a bunch of backups. Like, this is really his team right now. Like, get some good vibes early and then, like, try to close it off strong. I think that's really the important thing. But if they could get this one, it'd be a nice feather in their cap, because I think those week 3 and 4 games are going to be really, really tough.
How good a chance do you give them?
I would honestly put it at 50-50 right now, which feels crazy. But I really do like the way their defense played. We'll see if they get Chase Young back this week. I think that'd be a huge boost. And San Francisco playing a backup quarterback. Last time they faced Mac Jones, he had one of the worst games I've ever seen by a pro quarterback against the Saints. Yeah. They shut him out, and they shut him out in New England. They picked him off twice, took one back to the house. He's going to be better. He's in a better situation, but I still just don't think that he's this great quarterback. And I know the Saints have their own issues, but I still feel 50-50 on this one.
We will see. We'll be following along with you by Luke Johnson on Twitter. Find all of his stuff at NOLA.com and The Advocate. He's with us every single Thursday. Luke, we appreciate it.
Yep, my pleasure, buddy.
He is Luke Johnson. Our Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Let's talk about DJ Lagway when we get back. I uncovered some things today. Not earth-shattering, but interesting. We'll talk about it next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is that website. Captives. Every time I talk to Jonathan, he's excited about the things that they've got going on over there at the Highland Insurance Group as far as captives go. It's something that they're very, very comfortable with handling, and it's something that if you're a sizable organization that pays a significant amount in insurance premiums and your loss management, your risk history is good, well, you may be a fit for a captive. If your broker currently has not suggested a captive or isn't capable of handling a captive, because not everybody can, the Highland Insurance Group can do it. All you got to do is reach out. Go to HighlandIG.com, fill out your contact information, reach out to him here in Baton Rouge, talk to Jonathan Carb over there and say, hey, I heard Hunt talking about captives. I'm not real sure if we're a fit, but I'm interested in changing my bottom line as far as insurance payment goes. Let's talk about it. And Jonathan and his team would be happy to talk about it with you. I tell you every single day that they're an expert when it comes to insurance. If you're looking to call a new broker and say, hey, can you save me 20% of my insurance? That's probably not the phone call to make, not in this market. But if you're looking for creative solutions and you're looking to make sure that your coverage is properly written, the Highland Insurance Group is a phone call you need to make. Check them out online at HighlandIG.com. It's the Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Talk some recruiting with Sam Spiegelman coming up in 25 minutes. Chugging right along here on a Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Beck, I'm going to test your critical thinking skills. Are you ready?
Yes.
Wow. All right, let's do it. Here are DJ Lagway's starts from last year. He started a home game against Samford. He started a home game against Kentucky. He started a neutral site game against Georgia. He started a home game against LSU. He started a home game against Ole Miss. And then he started a road game against 2-9 Florida State. What do you notice about his starts from last year?
He mostly started in home games.
That is correct. I would suggest to you that he did not start a game in a hostile environment all year. Now, I will suggest also that he did play a little bit at Mississippi State, not exactly a hostile environment. They went 2-10 last year. He did start the game at Georgia, which is a big game, obviously. The crowd split 50-50. And he did play and started the second half at Tennessee. So it's not like I'm suggesting here in this segment that DJ Lagway is going to walk out on the field at Tiger Stadium and urinate on himself. I don't think that's the case. I will suggest that when you combine the environment in Tiger Stadium, the defense that LSU is playing, and the spot that program is in, that I don't think anybody's going to ignore over there in Gainesville. I know that they showed a lot of fight and a lot of heart in November last year, and they're to be commended for that. But nobody in blue and orange in Gainesville is naive to the fact that this program has been in neutral for 4 years under Billy Napier. They just lost an embarrassing game on their home field, and their head coach is in some turmoil. Nobody's immune to that. So the team can use that as motivation, but still there is another side to that. DJ Lagway is going to see something on Saturday night he has not seen before. He may rise right up to it, because guess what? This dude is big. He's 250 pounds. He is physically gifted, has a rocket for an arm, can throw the ball down the field. he stared down LSU last year and played really good football on one leg. He won 5 of his 6 starts at the end of last year. Like, he's got some skins on the wall as a young quarterback. But this will be a new adventure for him. And I would suggest that if LSU can get a lead in this game and LSU can crank up the environment in that stadium and that defense plays the way that it's played for 2 weeks, it's probably going to be pretty tough on DJ Lagway and company for all of those reasons put together. It's not just the environment. It's not just the defense. It's not just the fact that DJ Lagway didn't play worth a flip last week. It's not just the fact that Billy Napier is on a scalding Gainesville seat. It's all of those things put together. And I looked at, this was back in July. I watched the highlight tape. Now, keep in mind, it's a highlight tape. I'm not going back and watching the all 22 of 16 quarterbacks. I watched highlights of the quarterbacks to just familiarize myself with everybody's game before July and SEC Media Days. And what I found was that DJ Lagway's highlight reel is amazing. Like, he has a huge arm. Last year, he threw the deep ball so well. They hit LSU for 2 awesome deep balls. He didn't even run against LSU, and he really doesn't run much at all. He really is just a guy who wants to play from the pocket. And what you now see to transition out of that is, yeah, his highlight tape is awesome, but the people that watch him and break down film of him and put that stuff in podcast form or on YouTube where you can digest it, they suggest he does it too much. There's not enough of the intermediate game. He misses guys that you should see because he's trying to force the ball to a spot that he's already locked into. And that is the next step for him. And I think LSU can make that really difficult with the pass rush that they've got and with the coverage that they've displayed thus far. What shocked me in looking at Florida through 2 games, and this is not a direct reflection of DJ Lagway, but it's part of the equation of breaking down this Florida offense. It shocked me that Long Island had 11 tackles for loss against Florida. Long Island had 11 tackles for loss. South Florida had 7 tackles. They have given up 18 tackles for loss in 2 games, and they haven't seen anything like what LSU is about to put out there on a defensive front 7. So if LSU just gets the average here and gets 9 tackles for loss, and Florida's consistently in 2nd and 12, 3rd and 12, and that stadium gets cranked up to what it should be on a warm, early season, undefeated Saturday night in Death Valley, that's a recipe for disaster to me for Florida. Now, how do they defend against that? Well, you block with your veteran offensive line, and you get Jaden Baugh involved. And this is a circular way of me suggesting that, like, I just don't think, knowing what I know statistically, which is far less than Billy Napier knows in that building, but what I know statistically and what I know based on what happened last year, they've got to try, in my opinion, to shield DJ Lagway from having to shoulder this whole thing for the first time in that kind of environment. Like, that's my opinion. And the way that they do that is to get Jaden Baugh involved. So that becomes the flip side. In the first segment today, I told you about LSU's offensive line dealing with Florida's defensive line. I twist it back today and I go, if Florida can't sustain any sort of running game, well, that's a big problem, because then you're going to put it on a fairly young player who's never done this before. Talent's not an issue here. There are plenty of times where I will break down an LSU game and I'll go, they don't have the guys to do this. They don't have the horses to do this. This guy is not equipped to do that. There are plenty of times where I will make that argument. That's not the case here with Florida and DJ Lagway. It's just a tall mountain to climb for a guy that's never climbed that mountain before. All of this late season surge that Florida went on was in the comfort of the swamp. This ain't the swamp. Whole different animal. So I'm I'm curious what the environment is like on Saturday. My feeling is sincerely that it's going to be electric in there. And then you got to kind of look to what happens early in the game. If Lagway settles in, okay, you got a really talented player who's got a running game and he's making some plays earlier, probably pretty comfortable. Something goes sideways early. Maybe you lose a little bit of confidence. Maybe you start thinking more about the fact that the coach is on the hot seat. Maybe you start thinking more about the fact that you're about to be 1-2. Maybe you start thinking more about the fact that defense and you start seeing ghosts and you're not looking the way that you want to look. It starts to snowball. How many times have you seen it in there? A lot. Happens all the time. Almost every year. So I think that the narrative is that DJ Lagway is a potential star. I think that's a fair narrative. There's also a narrative right now that is that he's not playing great. I mean, last week, his statistical line is not terrible. 22 of 33 for 222 yards. But it's a lot of checkdowns, a lot of misfires on the deep ball, and he did throw an interception. I'm interested. This is going to be a big, big moment for DJ Lagway, for Billy Napier, and the entire Florida football program in that stadium. In the same way, it's a big moment for LSU to try to get off to a 1-0 start. And if you win this one, then you assure yourself into the last week of September as an unbeaten team. And this is essentially uncharted territory for this LSU program since 2019. Big, big key in this game. Quarterback who's never dealt with this environment, what that environment does, and the fact that now, unlike the last few years, unlike since 2019, maybe even before that, you've now got a defense that can feed off that crowd and create something that was very common for LSU back in the early part of this golden era with elite defense. I think you may see it again on Saturday night. I think LSU's defense is going to be prepared. I think that crowd's going to be nuts, and I think it could be a tough day for DJ Lagway inside Death Valley. Got a lot more to talk about with this LSU and Florida matchup over the next day and a half. I want to talk about Blake Baker in our next segment, and not X's and O's. Some fun stuff off the field that we learned in player interviews back on Tuesday night. But I'm going to tell you about Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. I know a lot of you swing by the local spot and grab your beef or whatever it is that you're buying for the week to cook at the house, and you got questions about your beef. One, why does it cost so much more than it did? Two, are antibiotics being used inappropriately? Are there steroids being used? How many DNA are in this pound of beef that I'm buying? All these questions that are reasonable questions to suggest are answered by Sagrera Farms. Sean and his family started this business just a handful of years ago. They haven't touched their prices in 3 years, and they don't have plans on it. They're not climbing like everybody else in the market. Even though herd inventories are at their lowest since the 50s, prices can be up as much as 20%. Sean has his cattle on property. He's comfortable with their inventory, and they're moving forward the prices they've always had. And no improper antibiotics, never using steroids. And when you buy that side, that quarter, that whole cow, you're buying one cow's DNA. And it's prime every single time. You're looking for ground beef. You're looking for steaks like ribeyes, fillets, flanks, all of it. Prime. We know that the barrier for that is 9 on the IMF score. You're looking at upwards of 13, 15, 17, 19 in some cases on Sean's farm today. If you're tired of asking these questions when you go buy your beef, do it differently. Call Sean and go out to Sagrera Farms. I give you Sean's number every single week. It's as simple as calling his cell phone and saying, hey, Sean, I want to come out to the farm. I want to check out what you got. I want to get my hands on some of this prime Angus beef. And he's happy to help you. Go take a tour. Go look at it. 225-719-1723 is his number. 225-719-1723. That's Sagrera Farms. They bring you our Thursday shows each and every week. When we come back, some sound from Whit Weeks on Blake Baker and why these guys love to play for him next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Wrapping up hour number one here. This is not an X's and O's segment. Just some fun here. I want y'all to kind of get a sense from hearing it from Whit Weeks, and I talked to Jordan Gilbert about it as well. I've heard Jack Pyburn speak about this. The defensive players just have such glowing things to say about Blake Baker and playing for him, and so many of them say the same thing. I wrote about this over at LouisianaSports.net this morning, that it has to be true. I don't think they're getting together and rehearsing what they're going to say. I think they all genuinely feel this way. This is Whit Weeks talking about getting energy from playing from Blake Baker.
I think our trust in Coach Baker, our buy-in to what he's teaching us and what he's preaching to us, he brings energy every single day. So it's hard not to bring the energy when the boss man's bringing it every single day. So I really just think the buy-in from all of us. We got way more than 11 dudes right now on defense playing good football. So that's promising to see because we got so much depth all over the board.
You see it because Blake Baker wears his cleats to practice, and he's got that LSU baseball cap. I love the interlocking baseball cap that he wears on the sidelines. He's just flying around all the time. I see him at practice when we go in the facility once a week. He's bouncing around in there, and he's just got an infectious energy about him, and the players absolutely feed off of that. What was asked about his favorite thing about Coach Baker?
Probably just the person he is. I mean, like, who he is off the field is he's just a super fun guy to be around, always having good conversations. He's a joy to be around.
It's not something you hear players say about all their coaches, about all their position coaches. I think LSU's got a great staff right now. And I don't mean at all to take away from the position coaches that I'm not going to mention right this second. But the two guys that I hear spoken about most affectionately as far as the position coaches go are Blake Baker first, for sure, and then really Brad Davis with the offensive line is spoken about in those terms as well from those guys. They're very different coaches. Brad Davis he is a hard ass at practice every time we see him. He is in those guys' face. He is dropping F-bombs. Like he coaches them very hard and then loves them up, I think, off the field is the sense that I get from talking to those players. Blake Baker is just juiced all the time and is got a smile on his face 80% of the time that I see him. And that's part of the reason I think that he connects so well with the players. And Whit was asked about that connection that he has with the players.
Probably just because he's a cool dude, really. Like off the field, like, you don't even have to be talking ball with him. Like, he'll just be talking life, like just having fun. Like, he's just one of the boys.
Baker has a trivia night that they participate in every Friday before games. I wrote this, LouisianaSports.net. It's got some quotes in it, but just to lighten the mood, to loosen some guys up. And Whit said, like, some guys will panic when they get up there and on a road game, they'll ask him, what state are you in? And the guys will freeze and they won't know. And I don't even know what state. And they laugh at everybody. Whit said he got stumped once last year on what bone are babies not born with. Whit posed that question to us on Tuesday night as a media. I've got a 6-month-old, and I said something at the top of the head. Apparently, kneecaps is the answer. I looked it up on AI, which is obviously the answer for everything. Apparently, they may be born with some cartilage there, but it's not fully formed. There's some question whether or not that's the real answer, but Whit said he didn't get that. Kevin Peoples is apparently the ace at the trivia game, but it's something that Blake Baker has brought in, and the guys love it. We talked to Jordan Gilbert about the connection that he's had, and he had the same things to say about Blake Baker, and that's just y'all as the fan base see him and the way his defense performs. And that's really all that matters to you. And for good reason. You don't know Blake Baker, you're not going to meet Blake Baker. But I think this is a little bit of a look behind the curtain at some of the secret sauce that he's got. Because obviously he is a great football mind. Whit told the story that I wrote about LouisianaSports.net about the final call against Clemson. And for those that can recall the play, Klubnik rolled to his right and Perkins was a heat-seeking missile and forced an early throw, and LSU got off the field on 4th down and won the game. And Blake Baker had that call in there for that specific time. And he said, okay, we're going to blitz up the middle, and Klubnik's going to bail right. He bails right every time, and I need Perkins flying off the end. And it happened exactly like that. And that execution and that plan, it gives the players so much confidence in what the coach is trying to do. And then when you couple that with the fact that they have such a great relationship with him from trivia, from off the field, from talking ball, from not talking ball, to his energy and his smile and his personality, like the whole thing works together. And they've got the right guy calling this defense. I don't think he's going to be here very long if we're just being honest about it, especially if LSU plays this type of defense the next 10 games. That's just how coordinator stuff goes. But they got a great guy in there right now, and as long as he is here, I think you're going to hear more players talk about him like that. I think you're going to see more calls like that with Harold Perkins, and I think you're going to see LSU play championship-level defense. That's not an X's and O conversation, really. It's just a conversation about how much these players light up when they're talking about them. I think that's interesting, kind of a peek behind the curtain there. That's hour number 1 here on this Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. We'll come back, talk recruiting with Sam Spiegelman of Rivals.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is that website. Every car that's on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. Every single model, all of them, on that lot and online. IIHA top safety pick. All of them. Some of them top safety picks plus. If you've got a family or you just want to be sure that you're in one of the safest cars on the road, Genesis needs to be on your list. There are myriad reasons why Genesis should be on your list. An amazing line of vehicles, an incredible staff, America's best warranty, the convenience and the attention to detail that goes into everything over there at Genesis of Baton Rouge. But safety is absolutely on that list. So if you're looking for a sedan, if you're looking for an SUV, and you want to be sure that you're in one of the safest cars on the road, Genesis offers that. Get on by Airline at PQ and test drive one today. Get on by and see the inventory at GenesisofBatonRouge.com, GenesisofBatonRouge.com.